Friends, when we walk through this corridor behind me, we are walking through unbelievable storytelling, where technically Oga's Cantina is the only attraction, it's the only door that opens to us. But in our minds, the options are absolutely endless. And that is such an important part of Galaxy's Edge. But I also think it's an important part why this land was missed on so many different guests that kind of saw all of the opportunities of their imagination and then felt like it didn't deliver up to all those options. Let me explain. Friends, today I want to break down the fake buildings of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and for some of them, the real purpose they serve, even though they serve nothing to the guests other than a facade and to deepen the storytelling. Many of these buildings do serve a purpose for the future of this land and for the current operations for the Disneyland staff. Brickey here, what do you say? Let's explore the fake buildings of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And today's video is done a little bit different than other design videos that I've done on the channel. This video was filmed once at night and once during the day so I could tell you the story in the best way possible. Because light is used as a main storytelling device inside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And the best way for me to show you some of this storytelling is at night and some of it during the daytime. Behind me is a project that you can really only understand during the daytime because at night it disappears, and at night is when this project fully comes to life. Taking a building that seems fake to us, but giving it an absolute purpose for the Disneyland entertainment crew. Use this building for an example. There's the bridge, there's the first part, there's the huge rounded area, the doors that lead to nowhere, a second cylinder, the huge, massive warehouse area, workspace area, garage where they work on the land speeder. Then on the back side of it, another platform, and then we finally get to the final spire at the other side. I've just broken down to you over a half a dozen different functionalities that our brain sees, but what it really is a giant scrim so that we can't see the warehouse that exists right inside of there. One of my absolute favorite buildings inside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is this round building right here next to the land speeder garage. This building is where you can stake out to see a lot of the characters come and go from the walkway over on the far right-hand side. But this building represents some of the best problem solving that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge has to offer. Even though this building may feel fake to us, it's very real in its purpose. As you remember, this was originally a backstage area that Disney converted over into theme park space. And one of the things that existed right where I'm standing was the warehouse where they would be able to get everything ready for Fantasmic, the nightly show on the Rivers of America. Well, once the backstage was gone, how do they take care of all of this when they have theme park directly behind them? So this fake building to us is actually a facade that on the other side of it houses a warehouse that is full of all the Fantasmic gear that needs to be brought out on the Rivers of America every night. When we ride on the Disneyland Railroad, we are riding over the top of this warehouse where everything is hidden directly behind me. And at the end of the night, the waterfall from the Rivers of America is turned off, and therefore they can take all the parade floats in and out. So even though we can't access this building, this is very, very much a real building and its purpose and how Disney uses it, only fake to us, the fans, where we have no access inside. And some of the pieces of this you can really only see during the day, where the regular concrete retainer wall in the background of the brush, that wall symbolizes the beginning of where the warehouse begins and the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge facade ends. This is a detail that you will not find at Batuu East out at Disney Hollywood Studios. It's also a detail that is very hard to see at night. When it's perfectly camouflaged and disguised inside of the brush, you only hear the noises of the creatures coming and going. You have no idea that you're standing on the edge of a warehouse that is housing all of the equipment needed to do Phantasmic on the rivers of America on the other side of the Disneyland Railroad tracks. Absolute fantastic creative problem solving. Friends, if you're enjoying today's design video, our first design video of season 1 2024 on Hey Brickey, make sure you subscribe today. I want to keep taking you on these design adventures, but your help justifies the labor and the work to keep making these videos that nobody else is making and telling stories that no one else is telling. Thank you so much for subscribing to Hey Brickey. As a designer, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is absolutely my favorite land, other than Main Street USA, but that's kind of like the heart of the park. But I love all of the design tricks that make Star Wars Galaxy's Edge so insanely special. And it's easy to look all around the land and see many of the different props that are placed everywhere to stitch together a story that we have traveled to a galaxy far, far away. And some of these are props that we recognize from the 9 different core Star Wars films. But other of these are just recycled industrial parts from planes, from giant boats, from motors, from all types of different vehicles. Many of these are repurposed to tell the Star Wars story on a budget. And hey, if we don't know what they're from, then it doesn't ruin the story for us. But with a trained mechanic's eye that's worked on heavy machinery and heavy transportation equipment, a lot of it is easily recognizable. But there's another trick that is so important to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and this is a Disney trick that we see in nearly every park and land they create. It's the fake buildings that they use to continue the story, to cut up the land, and to make it feel so much larger and expansive, which gives us the feeling that there is so much more to explore than what there really is. So when we look at the droid warehouse, there are so many different bins and folds in this building that makes it feel like it's its own little district, but yet it's just one building. It keeps on redesigning, reshaping itself every 10 to 15 feet so that as you walk by, you feel like it's a community of little shops when it's actually just a big box carefully disguised as lots of different little pockets of adventure. Over 8 different planes on one small building. Giving your imagination 8 different options of what's happening when it could just be one long stretch. That cookie cutter method of taking something and chopping it up into lots of different pieces plays a trick on your mind and allows you to explore Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It's big, but it's not massive, but it gives you the idea that there is so much more happening, so much more to discover, because everywhere you look, there are twists and turns, and that makes your brain process it as lots of options, lots of things to do. And the way the courtyard below, outside of Savvy's workshop, the way that this one building also has its own patchwork of folds and different directions that it goes in. This courtyard is two buildings joining together, the Droid Workshop and Savvy's workshop. But together, when you put them together with all these different folds and options, this little hidden valley inside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge delivers so many different possibilities and directions. You're lower than everybody else. It's quieter down there. There's different landscaping. There are so many different stories that your brain can take from this different spot that you're in. And it could have been as simple as just two regular shaped buildings versus the patchwork of opportunities and possibilities that you see right behind me. If you look at the Hollywood backlot and look at the studio buildings, they're just giant boxes, zero imagination. But when we think about putting a giant box inside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, but every 10 to 15 to 8 feet, cutting up and sculpting the outer edge that the guests walk by, then instead of seeing one giant rectangle that is housing a store or an experience, we see a neighborhood, we see a village, and we also see something that we want to explore. This is a Disney design trick that you see up and down Main Street, USA, Buena Vista Street, in nearly every single land. But this Disney design magic trick is put together in a way that I don't think it's ever been done inside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, where they really did create a marketplace with the Black Spire outpost in the dead center of the land, giving you the idea that there is a history, there is a community, there is a story, and there is an adventure. And that adventure is for you to discover. Friends, back here is one of my favorite places to record in Galaxy's Edge, because behind me, I get the beautiful view of Oga's Cantina. But often I see people try to walk back in here and open one of these doors, not realizing that they have accidentally just wandered backstage. But when we step over here to look at the fake facade that puts us in this narrow corridor, which is Oga's Cantina, the design, the architecture, the storytelling of this wall, it could just be brick, it could just be stone, it could just be trees, but no, it's a village, it's a story, it's somebody's apartment, it's somebody's office. It's a scale that doesn't quite make sense, which makes it absolutely amazing because you don't second guess it. It looks real. And when design is done properly, you just assume that it is that, a part of your reality, not an optical illusion, which clearly it is. I feel like lots of guests came in here, saw all these amazing buildings, all these beautifully handcrafted doors, and thought all of these doors should be an option for my adventure. And when they realized that most of it was facades, it kind of upset them in a way where there's nothing to do in here. It's the same trick we see at Main Street, USA. It's the same trick that we see at New Orleans Square, two lands that inspired Galaxy's Edge. I think the difference is, though, is many of us walked through those two lands when we were a child and our imaginations were skewed. A lot of people were hit with that adult reality of like, oh, I got fooled, it's fake. And I think that that upset some guests and made them feel like there's not a lot to do here, but as far as storytelling, there is so much to do in this land. That's why it remains my favorite. And then to my left, one of the greatest fake buildings of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, because this building holds the keys to the future of this great land. I've been fortunate enough to walk through here, but over on the East Coast, where this would lead you over to the Galactic Star Cruiser. There is a plot of land that's being held on the other side of this gate for the future expansion of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge on the West Coast. And so many of these fake buildings that we see set up the facade to keep us in this story until one day the story continues. And that day, I cannot wait for. Friends, I hope you have enjoyed a walk through Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, looking at the design of this masterful Disney theme park land, thinking about all the bins and folds, all the fake buildings, all the things that we can't open up or unlock, but we can inside of our imagination. Here's a video that I did about the fake buildings of DCA. Give it a spin and you can see how this design trick is used in real environments versus the sci-fi environment of Batuu. I can't wait to see you right now over here.